I felt like making a sniper build, and this is quite honestly what I came up with. I made two separate versions of this build. One is to maximize damage up against bosses, so to have as much damage output as possible using the sniper rifle. And the second part is for when you're in between boss fights and you're running around killing ads, which makes it just a little bit easier. Your archetypes are going to be Hunter and Gunslinger. Absolutely no surprise there. And your abilities are going to be Hunter's Shroud and Bulletstorm. I'll get into detail on how to use the abilities in just a moment. For your actual character, your armor, it does not matter, and I could not care less of what you pick. I ended up choosing this amazing little get-up that makes me look like an absolute fool because I like the medium roll, and if I changed absolutely anything, I ended up with a heavier roll or less armor, so that's kind of just what I ended up with. Now for the meat and bones of the build, we've got the weapons. Your main weapon is of course going to be the Widowmaker, which is a sniper rifle, and that is what this entire sniper build is based on. So, the Widowmaker, I ended up using the Hotshot mod because it gives you more pew-pew ranged damage, and we like big numbers. And as its mutator, I chose the Slayer, which gives us a damage boost to our next shot after reloading. And if you see, this gun only has one bullet per magazine. So every time you shoot, you're going to reload, and you're going to get the whole damage buff, and it's going to be this whole cycling cycle, so you keep getting big damage. As your melee, doesn't matter. You're hardly going to be meleeing. I chose the Nightshade, mostly because I like the way it looks, and if you get smacked by something tiny and you don't feel like using a relic, and you can just use its mod to regain some health, since it gives you lifesteal. I chose Resentment as its mutator to gain a 30% melee damage when grey health, because you're only using this thing when you get smacked. Anyway, melee weapon doesn't matter. Secondary also doesn't matter. I chose the Rune Pistol for the exact same reason I chose the melee weapon, so you can just stock up on a little bit more health when you get hits and you don't feel like using a relic. Now, for the important things. Your amulet is going to be the Ankh of Power. Why are we choosing the Ankh of Power? Because it gives us big damage when using our relic, and we're not using our relic. For the rings, we're using Xania's Malice, which allows us to get even more weak spot damage after hitting a weak spot, which is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for people's weak spots. Second is Stone of Expanse, which increases all range damage, but reduces all other damage dealt. It doesn't matter because we're only dealing range damage. Stone of Balance, just to have more damage because we like big numbers. And then Ring of Flawed Beauty, because you're hitting those weak spots and just allows us to keep doing more and more damage to weak spots. If you miss a weak spot, this will penalize you. So if you're dog shite at aiming, I'll give you some substitutions. If you don't like the Stone of Balance, you can use Burn of the Destroyer, which decreases the ideal range of a firearm, but increases all damage. You can use this ring if you find yourself at a relatively closer range in most combat situations. I did end up using this a little bit more often since most of the enemies tend to just run you down, so you don't always have all that space you need. And if you do not like Ring of the Flawed Beauty because you have the aim of a blind clown, you can use the Vestige of Power. The Vestige of Power gives you a damage buff after not taking damage. So quite honestly, you can just worry about more dodging the boss's attacks, instead of hitting only weak spots. Now for the relic there are two choices. I like the Enlarged Heart because it has a faster use time, but it does half the amount of relic charges you have. If you want to maximize the Ankh of Power uptime, you could use Lifeless Heart, which will double the amounts of relic charges you have, so you can basically just spam this every 15 seconds while in a boss fight, and you always have the Ankh of Power up. For your relic fragments, you're of course going for plus ranged damage, plus weak spot damage, and plus ranged crit chance. Now for the second variation of the build, you're changing out your amulet for either Escalation Protocol or the Core Booster. Escalation Protocol increases all damage dealt, stacking up to 10 times. This just helps if you notice you're not really hitting weak spots and you just want one-shot everything, kind of like the meatballs in Yeisha that would just stack up nicely and you can't hit its weak spots, or just, you know, enemies like also in Narud, the Flying Drones, you can't really always hit their weak spots, so if you just want to one-shot everything, this works very well for killing ads. And Core Booster works just as well, but yet again you have to hit weak spots. The nice thing about this is it increases all your weak spot damage for the next 10 seconds after killing something. You can just kill an enemy and then go on to like one-tapping everything else. I did prefer Escalation Protocol though. Then, for the rings, we're keeping Xania's Malice just to have the stacking damage with us, so we can keep one-shotting things. We don't want to lose our power. The Stone of Expanse is actually extremely good still. This is where the variations come in. I use Defensive Action Loop, just so I can have a little bit more damage reduction while killing the ads, and it gives you incoming damage reduction by 10% after reloading. Since we're reloading after every shot, this works perfectly. It's just so those ads, when you get a little bit overwhelmed or whatnot, you're not going to get absolutely one-tapped. And then I really like the Wax Sealed Ring, which is killing blows increase ranged and melee damage by 4% for 15 seconds, stacks 3 times. Yet again, if you can't hit any of those weak spots or you're going up against enemies that are a little bit more difficult or you're just in a rush and you one-shot them anyway, this just to make sure that tougher enemies can still get one-tapped. For the traits, you're of course trying to max out Longshot, which is the Hunter's default trait. This just helps a lot. Because, I mean, you're sniping and you want to keep a distance no matter what. Well, preferably. Then, Swiftness helps immensely due to the fact that half the time you're reloading and you like to reposition with this build. Since Swiftness helps a lot, Untouchable helps just as much, making your invulnerability window bigger when you dodge. Perfect. Honestly, perfect. And Endurance just helps. Honestly, it just helps everything. It gives you more stamina, so it helps both with running around. So helping Swiftness and helps you be able to dodge more, which makes Untouchable even better. Now let me explain how the abilities work. Hunter Shroud works perfectly with the build as is. And what I mean by that is, as soon as you pull the trigger, you kill something. By the time you're done reloading your sniper, you are once again invisible. The timing is as close as possible as I could get it, if not perfectly. So the entire playstyle of the build is shoot something, you're invisible, run around, shoot something, you run around, shoot something, you run around. And you're getting a constant damage buff with Hunter's Shroud. When killing ads, you're basically always invisible. When killing a boss, it's just more damage and it helps so much to be able to reposition. It's perfect. Bullet Storm increases your reload speed, which increases your damage per second. Now, never use Bullet Storm and Hunter's Shroud at the same time because you're basically just nullifying each other. Because Bullet Storm will make you reload too quick and Hunter's Shroud won't make you go invisible yet. So don't use them together. When fighting a boss, use Hunter's Shroud first. Once Hunter's Shroud is done, you use Bullet Storm. Things not to do though is don't use anything that makes your reload speed faster. So don't use Metal Drive, don't use Ring of Restocking or any reload speed buff whatsoever besides what I have put as mutators and as abilities. And yeah, that's about it. If you enjoyed the build, drop a like. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe. I hope you guys try it out for yourselves. Enjoy it. See you next time. And yeah, cheers.